are the cars for the Royal Automobile Club Woodcote and Stirling Moss Trophy races. Again, a combined grid of 44 cars, with Lotus 15 of Bon Grimes and Johnny Molam starting on pole ahead of the Lister Nobly of John Spears and Nigel Greensall. Roger Wills, serial winner in his Lotus 15, lines up third ahead of the Willis and Yerbstil car. Shane Brereton's Cooper Monaco, rear-engine car, mid-engine car, is in fifth place ahead of the Spears and Greensall Lister Costin. Yes, the same Spears and Greensall. They are driving two cars in the same race. So John Spears, we think, is likely to start the car on row one, the Lister Nobly, and Nigel Greensall will try and close up on him in the Lister Costin. So essentially the idea is they pit together at the same time, jump from one car to the other and leave again. We'll see how that works out for them. A hole on the grid, pencils poised. So in 17th place, we were expecting to see the Pearson's D-Type, and that was the pole sitter for the Woodcote Trophy race, and it does not appear to be there. So John and Gary Pearson's car, and on row 20, no 19th place car either. So Richard Cook's Lister Costin may have either fallen off the graphics or not made it out to the collecting area. Unique Jaguar Alton, which sort of Jaguarish red car. You'll see that's starting in 25th place with a host of C-types and D-types around it. Front engine Cooper Bristols, Lotus 11s, little Climax engine cars. You see one of them nominally as a Lotus 11 Le Mans. In fact, all racing spec Lotus 11s were the Le Mans spec car, with the Coventry Climax FWE and the Dion rear end. The road versions of the Lotus 11 had a traditional live axle, not a Dion axle. Zipping my Lotus 11 anorak right up there to the head shaking. And let's see if we can make ours. Can't hear each other, which is a little bit of an issue. So Alistair Douglas standing alongside me. Okay. So cars on the formation lap, and again you'll see a variety of predominantly front-engined sports cars. Again, end of the 50s, the cusp of 1960 is where the rear-engine revolution really started, with single-seater racing predominantly, but the Cooper company producing also the Cooper Bobtail, and that's the Cooper Monaco. You can see the pale green car, number 49 of Shane Brereton, on row 3 of the grid, and that is a mid-engined sports racer. There he is, the pale green car. You can see alongside car number 21, again, one of the Listers, front engine, big front engine, a lot of car in front of the driver sitting basically on the rear axle. But in these conditions, well, we heard from the Formula Junior drivers that they thought actually the front engine cars might be a bit more forgiving and a bit less twitchy than a mid-engine car. We'll wait and see if that is the case with these sports cars as well. As with our other grids that have left the pit lane, well, slippery surface flags are out, that's a given. They are getting a second formation lap. It will be a rolling start for our 44 or now possibly 42 car field, because we do seem to have lost the Pearson's D-Type and Richard Cook's Lister Costin. Have to say, in this Merc, I'm not going to try and spot if anybody else is missing. If they're missing, we won't be talking about them because they won't be visible. Well, let's see as they come through the Beckett's S's. See, is it Bon Grimes or Johnny Molam who's going to lead them away? I think that's Bon Grimes. And starting on pole, you will have, I was going to say the best visibility. What I actually meant, of course, was the least worst visibility. Bit of traction issues still for these cars. That's Hugh Apthorpe, or is that Chris Keith Lucas? Whatever it is, it's their Keith 1100 sports car in the Woodcote Trophy race. Lights are off on the safety car on the hangar straight. It looks as though we are ready to go racing. Roger Wills is, that's Roger Wills coming steaming down the inside. So has he had a problem as well? Roger Wills due to be fourth on the grid in his very familiar Lotus 15. It's the Lotus 15 of Johnny Molan and Bon Grimes that leads the field. We are ready to go racing at the 2024 Silverstone Festival. The Royal Automobile Club Woodcote Trophy and Stirling Moss Trophy races are about to get underway. Red lights are on and off they go. Bon Grimes in the Lotus 15, car number 26 on the inside, but in front of him it is John Spears who takes the lead using the grunt of the Lister Nobly to get in front. And third place already, I think that's Nigel Greensall in the dark blue car with the white stripes. That's the Lister Costin from row 3 of the grid. The white or silver car coming down the inside, that is 24, so that's Roger Wills. Didn't get himself back in position on the formation lap, but he jumps in front of car number 2, Andrew Guy Smith in the Cooper Monaco, and that car qualified down in 10th place, so already the two Cooper Monacos in 4th and 5th place, but Roger Wills up to 5th and 6th for the two Cooper Monacos. Roger Wills up to 4th place in the Lotus 15 and looking to challenge for 3rd.
And the two cars driven by the pairing of Nigel Greensall and John Spears are first and almost second, not quite, they're still first and third, but the little Lotus coming through into second place, the Johnny Molan, Bon Grimes, number 26, the green car, that was driven by Graham Hill in period, and then the ex-Bruce McLaren similar car of Roger Wills in 4th place.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think it's probably sensible for Bon Grimes to have started the race. Johnny Molan then will take the car over later. I'm trying to remember desperately now what Johnny Molan's helmet looked like. So long since I've seen him in an open car. But here comes Nigel Greensall down the inside in 88. That is the Lister Costin. Up into second, up into the lead. Takes 2 at the same time. So in fact, he's now ahead of his teammate John Spears. So those two cars in front, the two drivers of those cars will swap cars midway through the race. So if they're first and second now, then Nigel needs essentially not to open up too big a margin, otherwise he's going to lose that margin. But the battle is on for second place. John Spears and Bon Grimes. Bon Grimes in the little Lotus 15, much less weight to handle, so it'll stop better and it'll accelerate quicker despite having less power than the big Lister Nobly. So Bon Grimes back up to second. Roger Wills keeping his powder dry in the Lotus 15, the white car in 4th place. Now he's looking down the inside of John Spears, and he goes through for 3rd. There is Roger Wills with the silver fern on his helmet, the proud Kiwi in the ex-Bruce McLaren car. Won so many races with the car. Doesn't race a lot of other things, but when he's in the Lotus 15, he is a formidable opponent in any conditions against any cars. Nigel Greensall in that Lister Costin, again with a big 4.2 litre Jag engine. Bon Grimes runs out wide onto the gravel as they come out onto the straight, keeps it on the island, and Roger Wills up to second ahead of John Spears.
Indeed, yes, the little Lotus, well, the two little Lotus cars, a little bit more handleable in these conditions. Very, very good chassis always on Lotus cars, but with the smaller engine and less power, they're probably more handleable through here. But both John Spears and Nigel Greensall doing an excellent job in 1st and 3rd places as they come into the tight left-hander at the loop. And through on the inside, Bon Grimes looking for the way through. A little bit of opposite lock there, but can't cope with the power of that Nobly Lister number 152 of John Spears.
Yeah, what you're looking at there in the Lister is a 4.2 litre Jaguar engine compared to 1500cc or 1600cc in the Lotus. And of course, it won't just be a standard 4.2 XK engine. It'll probably have sort of big valve D-type heads and lots of extra breathing and everything else in full race spec. But what you'll probably find in the big cars, John Spears and Nigel Greensall, if it was normally a second gear corner, they'll very likely be in third, possibly even in fourth gear. You might even be 2 gears up, because these things have got such thumping torque that if you really open the throttle quickly, oh, and there's the Cooper Monaco in the gravel. That's Shane Brereton's car, and digs himself in.
I think he should have gone backwards there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was an option. That would have dug it into reverse as well, probably.
Yeah.
And that is down at Luffield, and that is going to bring out the safety car. He's in a very precarious position. A lot of cars using the tight inside line, but if you're coming round on the outside wet line, let's take a look. Well, he's slipped on somebody's oil perhaps, or just got a wheel on the white line. Trying to dig it out. He was on terra firma, sort of. And then unfortunately buried himself in the gravel. He was trying to do the right thing, and maybe in the dry it would have worked. I don't think that the race director's got any option other than to bring out the safety car. He is going to need a tow. Whether he's towed out backwards or forwards, not entirely sure. There's your race leader, Nigel Greensall, from 6th on the grid. Jumped up very quickly and had the lead by the end of lap 1. Again, the same chassis and engine underneath that body as in the Lister Nobly driven by John Spears, but a very different looking car, trying to make it a much lower profile car, trying to cheat the wind a little bit more. So that's an evolution of the Lister programme from Brian Lister. And then they went even further. You'll see further down the order the Lister Jaguar flat iron, an even lower profile version of the car. Wasn't quite as popular or successful. Roger Wills closing in now on Nigel Greensall, and the safety car is out, so Wills won't get the chance to pass, but it should be a short safety car. Well done, Marshals. Round of applause for the fans there, please, for the Marshals to get the car out so quickly. Shane Brereton back on terra firma, won't lose a lap. He will drop right to the tail of the field. There is Nigel Greensall with Roger Wills right with him. They're both far too experienced to do anything silly behind the safety car. As Shane coming to the pit lane, he may have done to have the car checked over and a bit shaken free of gravel. Bon Grimes, our pole sitter, or our pole starter, in 3rd place. Well, that truncates the field nicely, doesn't it? John Spears in 4th place. And then in 5th place, the second of the Cooper Monacos, and that's Andrew Guy Smith, the darker green, car number 2. And why are they not in line astern? Well, Alistair, they're fanning out, so they basically got visibility of what's going on with the safety car, haven't they?
Yes, and also you don't want spray thrown up in your face. If you can help it, to keep your visor clean. And so, as you say, the drivers... Oh, that's the Lola Mark 1 of Keith Arler's, which has been pushed away. That's a very unusual if that's retired mechanically, because that's a very, very reliable car, but that's unfortunately being pushed away. And yes, just going back to the spray, the drivers just almost in grid formation, aren't they? One on the right, one on the left. They've coming through Luffield into Woodcote corner. All the cars been picked up now.
Shane Brereton still in the pit lane. He hasn't got out of the car yet, but I'm not sure whether he is happy to rejoin. Roger Wills' hands in the air, both hands in the air. Now, he's very agitated about something. That's very un-Roger Wills.
Yes, he's just passed his pits, so it might be that he was trying to tell them something, but as you say, that's not like Roger. He's very relaxed normally.
Very sanguine. Well, yellow flags are out, safety car is out, but we think, we're having a look at our circuit cameras, don't see anybody else stranded. So Lotus 15, as we said, as Alistair pointed out, the car in 3rd place, car number 24, driven in period by Bruce McLaren. And for those who aren't aware, Bruce McLaren born and started his racing career in New Zealand, and like so many, made his way then in the opposite direction to the £5 Poms. Came to the UK to race, set himself up in south-west London and set up his own firm, but before then, racing whatever he could. And not the only one. So lights off on the safety car as they come down the hangar straight. So for all of those who are not on the tail of the safety car queue, time to try and catch up a little bit. There's one of our Jaguar D-types, Martin Halusa in the short, long nose D-type with the fin there, but we are ready to go back to green. Safety car is back in the pit lane. We go back to green flag racing. The race leader in car number 88, Nigel Greensall in the Lister Costin. Blue car, blue helmet, and a little bit of a slide out of the final corner. Across the line we go. He's being chased hard by Roger Wills in second place. The man who started on pole, Bon Grimes in third, just ahead of John Spears, and a challenge for fifth position. Slotting up the inside is David Hart in the family Lister. So David Hart moves up to fifth place in the Lister Costin that we think he's going to share with his son Olivier. And a challenge for the lead from Roger Wills. Didn't get by Nigel Greensall there. Greensall runs out wide though, carried in a fraction more speed. The Lotus trying to V off the corner. Roger Wills is alongside as they come out onto the Wellington straight. Nigel will have momentum, but it's Roger Wills who has the line. He now runs out wide, and then the big Jaguar engine in the Lister Costin starts to pick up its skirts and fly. He's on the inside. Wills is on the better racing line in the dry, but it's a little wetter offline, but there might just be the grip, and there is. Roger Wills is not going to try anything silly or incautious at this stage. I think he and Nigel Greensall will trust each other implicitly. The two cars, Alistair Douglas, handling so very, very differently in any conditions, and that's really magnified here in the rain.
Yes, you would have said that Nigel Greensall was going way too wide there into Luffield, but he was taking that wet line. Roger Wills went for the inside, more traditional racing line, but it wasn't any quicker, and he came out where he started in second place as they turn into Copse Corner, and you can see the spray being thrown up as coming up into third place has come the number 33 car. That's the Harts, father and son, David and Olivier Hart, and that car started. I'll just check my notes. They've just come through, Martin, to let you know.
Yeah, moved up to third place. And there you saw a great example of the Lister Costin of David Hart and the Lister Nobly of John Spears. Behind him, Bon Grimes still in fifth place, sliding around. And then the Cooper Monaco in sixth position of Andrew Guy Smith.
And it is David Hart who started the 33 car, and Andrew Guy Smith and Shane Brereton there in the light green with the white stripe, another of the Cooper Monacos.
Well, he was the one who was in the gravel that brought out the safety car, and actually he's rejoined the race, but he is 2 laps down, so 49 there is 2 laps down. Beside him, though, is a battle for position. It's the D-type we talked about a moment or two ago, car number 141, Martin Halusa, and again, Roger Wills. Now, Roger Wills down to third place because David Hart has moved up to second in the Lister Costin. So here's a sentence you'll never hear very much in period. Lister Costin's 1-2.
And the D-type number 141 was the car that finished second at Le Mans in 1954, the highest placed D-type.
And he was battling with David Richards in that silver or probably aluminium bodied Lotus 11. Was the car that was alongside him, and again the D-type using the extra grunt. And actually, if it starts to dry out a little, then the big Jaguar power units are definitely going to start to be able to exploit their advantage. Again, if you look at the Lister, well, Brian Lister might have designed the car and the bodywork, but all the other ancillary items, same with the Lotus, came from proprietary manufacturers. So the front lights are standard Lucas, the rear lights are also a standard Lucas light, which would have been on things like a Morris Minor and a Frog Eye Sprite and all sorts of stuff. So although they were bespoke racing cars, a lot of the other bits and bobs definitely came from other manufacturers. 168 just being lapped there, and that is Paul de Havilland's Lotus 11. Roger Wills in third place. And Bon Grimes is dropping away a little bit as well. He's now 10 seconds behind the leader, but still in fifth position. We're waiting for our pit window to open. We're only just about at 1/3 race distance. Car number 2 just in the background you saw there, that's Andrew Guy Smith's Cooper Monaco. And again, one of the few mid-engine cars in this predominantly front-engine field. What we're seeing here is sports car racing sort of at the death knell of front-engine cars, isn't it really? Already cars like the C-Type, the D-Type, all right, the Austin Healey is a road car, it is a little bit different, but in terms of racing cars, the 11s, the 15s from Lotus and all the listers, the front engine, their time was already fast approaching its end. 58, Gareth Burnett in his Lotus 11, another one of those climax engines to Dion rear axle cars, 1100cc. The Lotus 11 was for a number of years Colin Chapman's most successful design, certainly in terms of sales, and of course it won the index of thermal efficiency at Le Mans. But a Lotus 11, 1100cc Lotus 11 finished 4th overall on its first appearance at Le Mans at the end of the 50s. So it was by no means just a tiddler, it was a very, very fierce competitor indeed. Well, there is that silver Lotus 11. Right down the inside, three-way battle here. What's this for? This is the battle for 9th place. The Wilson and Nuttall car in 10th spot, looking up the inside. Now it's side by side with another Lotus. Gareth Burnett trying to find his way through. So Gareth Burnett in that black Lotus 11 with the aluminium lower part. Glass fibre body often was coloured or painted. The aluminium tub, if you like, would not have been. Short-nosed D-type behind. Driver raising his head above the parapet. Why is he doing that? Well, to see over the slightly fogged up or perhaps wet perspex screen, but also if you lift your, as a motorcycle racer knows, if you lift your head up, then that helps clear the water off your visor. So, the X-Works D-Type of Martin Halusa working its way up the order, just going by the Lotus 11 of Paul and Bourne. And that was for 7th place. Whoa! What a big moment! Very big moment for Gareth Burnett in his Lotus 11. Just holds on to it. And again, 1100cc, but more than enough to get yourself into trouble. Lucas Halusa sharing with Alex Ames. Nigel Greensell in the pit lane. So Nigel Greensell is in the pits. So I'm assuming that the pit window is open.
It is, yes.
Well, here's that moment. Ooh, busy hands, busy hands. And again, if that was a mid-engine car, that might not have come back. So who else has pitted? Well, David Hart hasn't. He's leading now from Roger Wills. Bon Grimes has. Interestingly, John Spears has not pitted. But Nigel Greensell is then waiting for John Spears to come in. This is a major fly in the ointment. The idea is that they were supposed to swap cars at the same time.
I wonder whether they've decided not to swap, because Nigel has no intention of getting out of that car, has he? Sat there.
Indeed.
It's not like he's sat there because it's drier in the car. He's put the clip back on the Perspex windscreen so that it doesn't flap around.
Now, you mentioned yesterday that he raced in, or he qualified yesterday in sunglasses. Today you can see his glasses have got a yellow tint, and of course yellow visors in this period, or those funny spinny ones that Graham Hill used to have occasionally in an open car, were useful for cutting down glare in wet weather. So has he got wet weather specs as well as sunny weather specs? Well, here is a genuine driver change.
And that's Matt Jackson being strapped into Richard Postin's Lotus 11, which was the factory demonstrator car in period and then disappeared for a long time. But
so is this the one that Jenks took on a Christmas Day drive?
No, that was a Lotus 16, wasn't it?
16?
Open wheel car.
Oh,
yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay, so David Richards also stopping. So a bit of twiddling and tightening. Is that throttle linkage being adjusted? Big Healy driver change as well. Everybody maintaining a 60-second minimum stationary time, and the reason for that is A, equality, but B, safety. So that everybody is strapped in safely, particularly with their hands devices. Nigel Greensall still in the pits. No, must have left by now, or is that? I think he's leaving right now, even as I watch him. Oh no, there he goes. He is back out on track. So you're absolutely right. Plan B has gone into action. All right, it's every man for himself. Nigel Greensall staying in the Costin. That means that John Spears will stay. Oh, that's great, isn't it? You could just hear the revs rise even before the car started to slide as he came out of Club Corner. Club on the run down to Abbey as ever was, and then of course turning left and nowadays turning right through Farm, sweeping left-hander down to the tight right at Village. You can hear the blip on the down change from Nigel. Little short shoot up to the tight left-hander at the loop. This is a sort of long, multiple apex left-hand corner really. You straighten up a little bit between the loop and Aintree, but it's glorious. Straight 6XK engine, one of the classic engines of all time. Little issue here for David Richards, Lotus 11. It's taken a while to sort. So you can see the Climax engine, built by Coventry Climax in Coventry, as you would expect, canted over. It's at about a 35-degree angle. Why is it at an angle? Does that make it perform better? No, but it makes it lower, effectively, so you can have a lower bonnet line. They weren't the first, they certainly weren't the last people to lean an engine over.
And that's Will Nuttall getting into car number 94. Richard Wilson started the car, and Will Nuttall, a very, very quick driver indeed. They are currently lying in 8th position, but obviously the order mixed up a little bit at the moment with the pit stops taking place.
55, or as it is in this race, 1:55. And that is Tim De Silva's Lotus 11. He's going very strongly early on, wasn't he? Where did he qualify that car? He was on the first 2 or 3 rows, was he? No, a little bit further back. Tim De Silva qualified in 15th place. And again, it should be a few minutes, isn't it, before all the pit stops sort themselves out.
Yes, and confirmation now with Nigel Greensall clearly has gone back out again in the Costin Lister, and so Nigel and John Spears will not be switching cars as they'd originally planned to do.
Yeah. And I wonder if John thought that the Nobly wouldn't give them as much of an opportunity for victory as if Nigel stayed in the Costin. Not sure. David Hart leads from Roger Wills. The Bourne and Paul Lotus 11, car number 11, is in 3rd place, and that car, the blue Lotus 11, started down in 18th position, so there have been a lot of pit stoppers. The top 6 have yet to stop, and car number 152, Nigel Greensall is now up to 7th place, so he is the leader of the non-stoppers, which makes sense as he was the race leader and he stopped first. So here is our current race leader, David Hart. Now, he was initially down to drive with his son, but as you can see on the graphics and on our grid, it is only David Hart's, on our grid sheet, David and Olivier Hart, but again, they may have decided that actually sending out either of them unraced into these wet conditions is probably not the best idea. To keep one driver in the car is probably a better idea. And again, that's the same deal, I think, with John Spears and Nigel Greensall, is that just stay in the car you're in, because you know what it's like in these conditions, whereas you swap to another car, although you might know it really well, you don't know it as well in these conditions as the one you've just driven. So it makes an awful lot of sense not to go chopping and changing.
And you also don't know the track conditions as well as the driver that's been in the car for the best part of half an hour.
Correct.
That's Malcolm Paul now in the number 11 Lotus 11. Rick Bourne always starts in that partnership. coming through the wonderful Maggots and into the Beckett sweepers, right and left. Looks very small on the very large Silverstone track, but an effective car from Colin Chapman.
Such a pretty little thing as well.
Yeah, from 1958.
Yeah, such a pretty car, the Lotus 11.
Nigel Greensall still leading after pit stops have been unwound, because at the moment he's not shown as leading, but he has done his pit stop, number 88 in the Costin-bodied Lister owned by John Spears.
Yeah, John Spears has stopped as well. He's on his outlap, so he has made his stop. David Hart, Roger Wills still want to. They've yet to stop. The Bourne and Paul Lotus 11, car number 11, continuing in third place. There's just 0.8 of a second, first to second. So David Hart in car number 33 is our current leader. And as the track dries out, where does the balance fall between staying out and coming in? And when do you choose to do so? Of course, we've got two races going on here. The cars at the front of the field, Alistair, are in the Woodcote Trophy, in the Stirling Moss Trophy. But we have another group of cars in the Woodcote Trophy, which are predominantly more road car type cars. So you've got Austin Healey's, Fraser Nash's, a bunch of Jaguar D-types, obviously at Cooper Bristol, so that really gives the lie to them being more road car-y, but they're of a slightly different vintage, earlier in the 50s particularly. And leading the Woodcote Trophy cars at the moment in fourth place, I think is our fourth place car not a Woodcote Trophy car? No, he's not. Yes, he is. Mike Thorne and Sarah Bennett Baggs, the Austin Healey 100M.
Yes, of course.
He's in fourth place, car number 100. That is leading the Woodcote Trophy. Martin, has it stopped? No, boys and girls, it has not stopped. But the leader has. David Hart is in and stays in. Was that Olivier? Was that Olivier, but without yesterday's yellow gloves? I'm going with what we see on screen. I'm assuming it's David Hart. Roger Wills is in as well. The number 11, Lotus 11, yet to stop. Nigel Greensall up to fourth place. Stopped early, has been in the lead since lap 1 and has the fastest race lap, a 2-minute 51.5. His current last lap was a 2-minute 54.3. Go, 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 go. Whatever the Dutch for go, go, go is. And David Hart comes out ahead of Roger Wills. So the husband and wife duo, Mike Thorne, Sarah Bennett Baggs, are now up to effectively the race lead. Are they? Oh no, they're coming
in the pits
now.
Now.
They have come into the pits. So they didn't pit as... there you go, look. There is your battle. There is first on track, and coming out of the pit lane, there is second place. So that is Nigel Greensall, meters ahead of David Hart. We are back to a Lister Costin 1-2. That's your lead battle. There's Roger Wills in third in the white Lotus 11 through the Beckett's S's. They are covered by barely a second. Fantastic battle in prospect now. And if it continues to dry, or if it dries even a smidge, then is Roger Wills going to stand a chance of getting by these two cars? If it stays wet, then I think he has potentially the prospect of maybe getting by both of them. But the little Lotus will lose out in the horsepower stakes. It does look like both Nigel Greensall and David Hart, as well as Roger Wills, having done the entire race so far, very dialed into their cars.
And all three of them driving solo, so that sort of confirms what you said earlier about drivers staying in the car have a slight advantage in these conditions, probably quite a big advantage due to the track conditions.
Roger Wills, you can see how much he's having to lean on the car, getting it sideways coming into Abbey. It's the big cars, the Listers, that are getting sideways coming out of Abbey as they're trying to chase the throttle. John Spears up to fourth place. Bon Grimes now, I think, having handed over to Johnny Molam in fifth place. Not sure that he has. We'll have to get eyes on that car and see if there's a different helmet. Again, they may have decided that actually keeping Bon in the car is the sensible option. Lucas Halusa and Alex Ames up to 6th position ahead of the Bourne and Paul Lotus. So car number 141 in 6th place. And that is where they come from. They've come from a long way back on the grid. That is the Jaguar D-Type, car number 141. That started in 24th position. That is up now to 6th spot. There it is. So that's Alex Ames' helmet, I think, now in the car. OKV1, one of the very successful factory D-types. Short nose with the fin. And there is Johnny Bolam. So it has been a driver change. Now I remember what Johnny's helmet looks like. It was Bon Grimes that started, and that makes so much sense in filthy conditions when the car's at the front of the grid. Give your gentleman driver as much visibility as he can. Johnny Bolam and Bon Grimes, the Lotus 15 that started on pole position in 5th spot. But here is our battle for second. Whoa, big moment. Turning into Copse Corner. David Hart hangs on to it. Roger Wills, for a moment there, might have been wondering if the big Lister was going to loop across his bows. He had to remain committed, but he has dropped a whisker back. And Nigel Greensall moving around the Fraser-Nash, just starting to extend a little bit the advantage over David Hart. It's out to about 2 seconds now. David Hart has his hands full with A, the Lister Costin, and B, the presence of Roger Wills behind him. 133 is the Chris and Oliver Phillips, I beg your pardon, it's not Fraser-Nash, it's a Cooper Bristol Sports. Of course it is, Martin, you idiot. That's the car they were just going by there in the Beckett's S's.
And Roger Wills trying to go up the inside into Stowe Corner of the big Costin-bodied Lister of David Hart, but no room to get through there. But they're coming into a tighter section now into the left. Not quite as tight as the Grand Prix left at Club Corner, but what we call the historic Club Corner. But he's lost out a little bit along the straight there as they come now onto the Hamilton Straight to complete another lap with 18.5 minutes remaining. And the view from our camera at the head of the Hamilton Straight shows you just how wet it is, as all we can see is headlights. Quite reminiscent of dusk at Le Mans coming towards us.
Or daylight at Le Mans, where we do have some very wet Le Mans, you're right, absolutely. Yeah, it is visibility. There you are, that's because I said it was getting better, didn't I? Visibility is getting a lot worse, not just for the drivers, but for the marshals as well. It's getting really quite grey in places. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't raining harder. There seems to be less spray. But again, you can see that the track is still very, very wet. When Roger Wills gets sideways, either he is absolutely nailing the mother and father of all qualifying laps, or the track's very wet indeed.
Yeah, you can see there as he came out of Aintree, he just got the car into a little bit of a slide, but now he's trying to go down the inside, maybe looking for a little bit more grip, as we see one car stopped at the side of the track, which is the number 36.
That's 11, I'm not sure.
That's the Eric Stays car, which unfortunately seems to have got...
place. Looks like the bonnet clips have actually come loose there, so I'm not sure if he's had an incident or not. Car number 2, the Cooper Monaco, getting very sideways now. Why has that disappeared? That's the Andrew Guy Smith car. He's a lap down, and I'm not sure why. I didn't think we saw him go off. Not sure where he's disappeared to. There's the number 11 Lotus 11, and that is the Bourne and Poole car. That's now down to 8th place. I think they may have had a moment as well.
There we are. The answer to Eric Stays is he went straight on, and I think that was the same place that Richard Kent went off in the Broadspeed Capri, wasn't it?
Well, he's managed to avoid the gravel trap and found a bit of terra firma. I thought the bonnet was looking like it might have been a little bit loose, but it wasn't. Okay, battle on for position here. The Wilson and Nuttall Lotus on the inside. That's car number 94 of the dark blue. Number 11, that's the Bourne and Poole car. A little bit of hand signals out of the cockpit. You go that way, mate. I think that Malcolm Paul realises that the car behind him is coming up with a head of steam. So the Lotus, going by the Lotus 94, that's a 15, isn't it?
That's the 2-litre engined Lotus 15 from around about the same period as the 1500cc Lotus 11. And both obviously came out of the Lotus factory from the pen of Colin Chapman, as that car we didn't spot when he lost all the time, but Andrew Guy Smith correcting a slide there in the Cooper Monaco. But Will Nuttall now is on board the 94 Lotus 15.
Absolutely flying. There is the car that he is chasing, not number 2, but number 141, the Lucas Alusa Alex Ames Jaguar D-Type, which is currently in 6th position, and that's coming down towards you if you're watching at the Maggots and Beckett's. D-Type honking on. There's the Pearson's D-Type. That is in 7th place, so there's 2 Jaguars ahead of the Lotus of Will Nuttall. Will with the blue helmet with the crown and the W on the front. Car number 94 now through into the Beckett's S's and going the long way around the corners, not going anywhere near the apex. He's looking for the grip.
And Will is considerably quicker than quite a few of the cars ahead of him. Not everybody, but quite a few. So we might see Will moving up in that 94 Lotus 15. But in the foreground, the number 17 Jaguar D-Type, that's in the Woodcote Trophy. And that was started by John Pearson, so Gary on board now. We did at one stage think that was not going to start the race, but really pleased to see that it did. It was missing from our graphic, wasn't it, at the start of the race?
Ben Eastick coming in the shot, and Ben Eastick's Jaguar D-Type started in 28th place, and as you can see on the graphics, car number 9 is now up to 11th and chasing this car, the Hudson and Morley White Lister Nobley, car number 21. So some really close battles on track. There is the Pearson's D-Type. Oh, and across the gravel goes Tim De Silva. Comes back on in his Lotus 11. Pearson's D-Type is being reeled in again. You need dry conditions here, even on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, for the D-Type to really stretch its legs. And Will Nuttall in the Lotus 15, car number 94, is definitely closing fast. Short-nosed D-Type, no fin on this, so this is the shape of the early D-Types. And in fact, quite a lot of D-Type owners, the likes of Duncan Hamilton, would have had a shorter sprint body as well as the long endurance body on their privately owned cars.
And that car is second in the Woodcote Trophy to another D-Type. That's the 141 D-Type. We did see that on screen earlier on. That's the Lucas Alusa, now driven by Alex Ames, number 141, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the actual car which came second at Le Mans in 1954.
Yeah.
Whereas the Pearson D-Type was an original car from the period, but went through some rebuilds at Pearson's about 20 years ago.
And there it is, the car that started in 24th place, now up to 6th. Lucas Alusa started in, Alex Ames is in it.
It actually looks like Lucas's
helmet. Or is it the other way around? Did Lucas stay in? Maybe he did.
Maybe he did, yeah. It should have been Lucas then Alex, but that looks like Lucas's helmet.
And that, again, that would make sense. To stay in the car, you know the conditions, you know the car. And again, you know, we're not talking about a kit car, we're not talking about something that you've built yourself from a road car. This is a factory period Jaguar with enviable history. And you want to race it, you want to show it at its best, but you also want to be able to put it back onto the trailer in the condition in which it came off, just with a few more raindrops rather than lots of structural damage. So, okay, so that was Lucas Alusa. There is the John and Gary Pearson car, and again, whether they change drivers or not, I'm not sure, but closing in behind is 94 Will Nuttall. So this is for 7th place. Will look like he was making progress. He is closing slowly on the D-Type in front, but it is relatively slowly. Last lap for the Pearson D-Type, a 3-minute 4.02. Will Nuttall only 41 hundredths quicker, so not closing by a lot. 0.4 of a second a lap with 11 minutes to go. He's not going to be on the podium, is he, Will Nuttall, unless there's a lot of cars falling off in a hurry.
And that does look like Gary Pearson has taken over the Pearson brothers car with the familiar white helmet and the goggles. Nice to see goggles being worn. Not everybody wears full-face helmets these days.
Well, one of the things with goggles is that they're much less prone to misting up than a full-face helmet in these conditions. You can crack the visor as much as you like, but your breath is a lot hotter than the outside air.
Will Nuttall closing in gradually on Pearson. Will Nuttall is not in the Woodcote Trophy, so for that sort of race within the race, he's not challenging for position, but of course in the overall stakes for the Stirling Moss Trophy and Woodcote Trophy together, it is an overall position as they come out of the loop.
And again, you can see what a very different set of lines Will Nuttall's used just in the last two corners, and is closing now on Gary Pearson, closing very quickly. What was 1.3 seconds has gone down to barely a car length between them. Again, the D-Type picks up its skirts and goes. Lotus just doesn't have the grunt to stay with it, but he's using the different lines to find grip, whereas Gary Pearson is more on the traditional racing line. I'm not sure the Jaguars perhaps got the alacrity to go wide and come in tight late. Will Nuttall sweeps around the outside. Why is he going so wide? Because he's trying to keep momentum up. He's trying to find the traction off the greasy, oily racing line. And here's where the overlap happens. That's the momentum that the Lotus has got. Again, of course, he's winning in the corners, and Alistair, then the Jaguar just pulls away down the straight, but this time he doesn't, and Will Nuttall does make the place up. He is up to 7th place, ahead of the D-Type of Gary Pearson.
So Pearson remains second in the Woodcote Trophy, but as you say, yes, that move round, we saw that start at Brooklands all the way through Luffield. Will Nuttall positioned the car, but Gary Pearson a little bit more power than the 1500cc Lotus with the Jaguar engine, is able to close up a little bit as they come up to Beckett, but then through the tight rights and lefts, the Lotus probably a better car, and Will once again going very, very wide through the third element of Beckett's, now through Chapel and onto the Hanger Straight. We might see Gary Pearson come back at him down into Stowe Corner, but looks like Will Nuttall has got that place sorted. We're looking at another of the Lister Nobblers, this one the Hudson and Morley car number 21, as the Jaguar Alton takes an additional into the next county road.
A penalty loop. Now then, this is Ben Eastick in the number 9 D-Type, right behind the Hudson and Morley Lister, but there should be Finborough and Burton behind them, so as the number 25 car got in front.
That was the car that went off at Beckett's.
Ah, okay.
So he lost a couple of places with that very wide moment in Beckett's, the Jaguar Alton.
Aha, right, okay. So there we go. So that was in the middle. So that... Whoa, there we go. Just carrying a fraction too much speed in.
And that's Stuart Morley driving in the second part.
Oh,
and somebody else has to
close.
Take avoiding action.
That's Michael Gans in the Lotus 15 car, number 15, the Burgundy car. Whoa. That was a proper heart stopper for Michael Gans. And again, that you can see on the pictures, and I'm sure everybody who's around the circuit watching is going, shut up about the weather getting better, because it really isn't. You can see how much mist is in the air. There's barely a breeze of any kind here, so the water these cars are shifting up into the air, which is where the spray goes, of course. It's kind of coming back down, and red flag. Okay, well, yes, I think although nobody's buried in the gravel, I think that was a close enough call for the race director to say, okay, visibility on the Hanger Straight, what are these cars doing? They're doing 119, 120 miles an hour in streaming wet weather conditions where they're not seeing anybody who's gone off. Yeah, that is a very sensible call. So the red flags come out. It will be victory for Nigel Greensall, brackets, and would have been John Spears. Second place for Roger Wills, because he got ahead of David Hart. Did we see that?
No,
Have I forgotten that? I don't think we did.
It's worth mentioning that with a red flag you go back a lap, so
it's the last completed lap.
You and I didn't see when that changed, and we both missed that on track.
Well, on our timing screens, they're part-way through a lap, and Roger Wills is ahead of David Hart, so that would have been at the end of the last lap. So you're absolutely right. A part lap doesn't count. It will be counted back to the end of the last lap. And that means, actually, that the Jaguar Alton will finish where it was in 6th or 8th position or whatever. So, yeah, because that was on the lap on which the red flag came out. So that would have saved their bacon a little. But Nigel Greensall, Roger Wills, David Hart, or Olivier Hart, we're not entirely sure, to be honest, which we think David. That's your top three. And then John Spears fourth, Bon Grimes and Johnny Molam, the first of the actual two driver lineups in fifth place. And then conceivably Lucas Halusa in sixth in the first of the D types. So I can see him at the top of the screen, so it's actually showing that he's in the pit lane. But
yes, they're all coming in now. So and they're the winners of the Woodcote Trophy. If I say they, because Alex Ames is listed as driving, I didn't spot whether he took the car perhaps first and then handed to Lucas, or maybe Alex has a different helmet for this race. But they're the winners of the Woodcote Trophy from the Pearson brothers, John and Gary Pearson.
Little wave from Nigel Greensall, our race winner, and that will be as much for the Hardy crowd as for the marshals. The marshals all saluting the drivers as they come in. So Nigel, who with John Spears, they are racing 7 cars in 6 races. And if you say, well, now, how does that work? This is where the 7th car comes in, because they were racing a car apiece and they were then due to swap. So that they would each race 2 cars in this race, but in fact it ends up with them racing 1 apiece. So it's down to 6 in 6. Well, that's again, you know, Nigel raced in 10 races last year in the festival, I seem to remember, but a little bit of he's getting on a bit, you know. I'm very happy. It's going to take a while to wipe the smile off his face. Nigel is rarely happier than when he is at the wheel of a racing car, and it genuinely doesn't matter what racing car. He's an absolute bundle of energy. Worked with Nigel for a number of years, and racing car or instructing or anything to do with cars, he's absolutely thrilled. His partner's a DJ, so they spend their time travelling the world racing and DJing. There's Roger Wills. Roger looks like he was pretty happy for that to finish. He finishes in 2nd place, and David Hart, I think, will eventually join us in 3rd. Just saw John Spears going by in the Lister Nobly. And there is car number 9. So that is Ben Eastick. Ben will be in the top 3 of the Woodcote Trophy.